So think about this for a second. You've got a war that has been dragging on for over 100 years, and then one person shows up and in just over a year completely turns the whole thing on its head. How on earth is that possible? Well, that's the puzzle we're digging into today. Let's get to it.
Okay, first let this number really sink in. 116 years. We call it the 100 Years' War, but it was even longer than that. This wasn't just some conflict. For generations of people in England and France, this was just life. It's kind of hard to imagine, right? A war that started before your great-grandparents were even born.
And now, look at this number, 13 months. That's it. That is the entire time Joan of Arc was actively fighting on the scene. Just 13 months out of 116 years. And yet, in that tiny little window of time, she managed to change absolutely everything.
So the big question is, how? How did one person pull that off? What does she actually do? And how did her actions create these huge ripples that ended up deciding the whole war? Let's break it all down. Okay, so to really get what Joan achieved, you first have to understand what a complete and total mess France was in right before she appeared. I mean, they were right on the edge of defeat. So let's wind the clock back to the year 1428, before anyone had ever heard of a teenage peasant girl from a little village called Domremy. This timeline, well, it basically shows a country falling apart. It's just one disaster after another. In 1415, the French army gets totally wiped out at the Battle of Agincourt. Then, in 1420, comes the Treaty of Troyes, which was a political catastrophe. The French king literally named the English king, Henry V, as his heir. I mean, on paper, the war was over. England had won.
And this pretty much sums up the whole situation. On one side, you have the French heir, the Dauphin Charles. He's not even officially a king because he hasn't been crowned. He's isolated, and his support is just fading away. And on the other side, the English. They've captured Paris, they've got the treaty that makes their king the heir, and they are besieging the critical city of Orleans.
And the Siege of Orleans was basically the final nail in the coffin. You see, Orleans was the gateway to the south of France. If it fell, the English could cut the country in half, and that would be it for Charles's cause. Game over. The city had been under siege for months. It was about to fall. France was hanging on by a thread.
And then she arrives. And her first impact was direct, it was measurable, and honestly, it was stunningly effective right there on the battlefield.
9 days. Just 9 days. That is how long it took Joan to break a siege that had been dragging on for months. She got to Orleans, and 9 days later, the English army was in full retreat. It was a shocking, unbelievable victory that changed the feeling of the entire war.
But this wasn't just a one-off fluke. A few weeks later, at the Battle of Patay, the newly inspired French army did something that people thought was impossible. They attacked an English army in the open field and completely crushed them, routing the feared English longbowmen before they even had time to set up. This was a massive deal.
This chart shows you just how fast everything flipped. In April of 1429, France was on its knees, losing badly. By July, just 3 months later, the entire strategic balance of the war had shifted. All of a sudden, the English didn't seem so invincible anymore.
But her impact went so much deeper than just winning a few battles. Her most important contribution might have been something you can't measure on a map. It was all about belief.
Morale. It's everything in a war. The French army was demoralized. For decades, all they'd known was defeat. They basically expected to lose every time. Joan gave them something that tactics can't. She gave them the absolute conviction that God was on their side and that they were going to win. And let me tell you, an army that believes it can win fights completely differently.
But Joan understood that this was about politics, too. She marched the Dauphin deep into enemy territory, all the way to the city of Reims. Now, Reims was the traditional place where French kings were crowned. And on July 17, 1429, the claimant, Charles, was crowned, becoming the legitimate king, Charles VII.
This was an absolute political masterstroke. But when the English eventually captured her and had her executed, they thought it would break the French spirit. Instead, it backfired, catastrophically. By burning her, they didn't discredit a heretic. They created a martyr.
So Joan was executed in 1431, but the war went on for another 22 years. So how can we really say she changed the outcome? Well, it's because the new direction she set for the war never, ever changed back.
The momentum she created was irreversible. The tide had turned for good. Those final, decisive French victories at Formigny and Castillon, they were the direct result of the new reality that Joan had created all those years before.
And here's exactly how it happened. Charles VII, the very king that Joan had crowned, used his new authority and confidence to completely reform the French military. He built a professional, standing army that was better trained and better equipped. And it was this new army that finally drove the English out of France for good.
So, back to the big question. Could France have won without her? Well, maybe. Perhaps, eventually. But the truth is, she was the catalyst. She was the spark. She didn't win the war all by herself, but she created the conditions, the morale, the legitimate king, the military momentum that allowed France to finish the job.
Now, before we wrap up with a quiz, I want to share two fascinating facts that show just how powerful her legacy became, almost from the moment she died.
Check this out. This quote is so powerful because of who reportedly said it. This wasn't a French supporter writing propaganda years later. This was supposedly said by an English king's secretary, right there, watching her execution. Even her enemies realized in that very moment that they had just made a terrible, terrible mistake.
And for the last 600 years, Joan has been claimed as a symbol by pretty much every political movement in France, even ones that are completely opposed to each other. You've got monarchists, Republicans, nationalists, feminists. They all look at her story and see their own cause reflected in it. It's like she has become whatever France needs her to be.
All right, you've heard the whole story. Now it's time to check what you've learned. Get ready.
Question 1. How long was Joan of Arc actively involved in the 100 Years' War? Was it A, 7 years, B, 3 years, C, approximately 13 months, or D, 5 years? The correct answer is C. Her incredible impact happened in just about 13 months.
Question 2. Why was the situation so desperate for France back in 1428? A. They had no army left. B. Their king was captured. C. The Treaty of Troyes and the Siege of Orleans. Or D. They had run out of money. The answer is C. The treaty had legally disinherited their prince, and Orleans was about to fall. Question 3. What was Joan's most important political achievement? A. A peace treaty. B. The coronation of Charles VII. C. Capturing the English king. Or D. Getting papal support. The correct answer is B. Crowning Charles VII made him the one legitimate king. Question 4. Why did the English burning of Joan backfire so badly? A. It caused a ceasefire. B. It made England unpopular. C. It made her a martyr. Or D. It caused the French to surrender. The answer is C. It turned her into a powerful symbol for France.
And final question, number 5. How did France finally win the 100 Years' War? A. England ran out of money. B. Charles VII reformed the army. C. The Black Death. Or D. A peace treaty. The correct answer is B. The king Joan crowned went on to build a modern, professional army.
And that's it for this explainer. Join us next time for the series finale. We've gone through 27 videos, 387 years of history. It's time for medieval England. Everything we have learned, one final time.